Welcome to episode 9. I'm going to teach you how to use scenarios to help unwilling or unaware employees learn new and awesome skills.
You're here because you want more engagement, more delight, more fun, more learning. You're hungry for change and willing to take action.
If you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original.
Welcome to the eLearning Scenario Design Podcast with Anna Sabramowitz.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.
Let's take learning to the next level.
Hello, my friends. Hope you're doing well today. I certainly am. And hopefully this podcast will help you have a better day because you'll be learning some really cool information about something that I absolutely love, which is, as you know, scenario design. So, as I was thinking the other day about scenarios, this situation came to mind and I thought I'd share it with you because it's really, it's definitely personal, but I think it's a really good example of how we approach our scenario design sometimes, not always, but sometimes, and maybe some of the things that we need to consider before we start developing any kind of training or tools. And one of the questions that I frequently get is, how do you get people who have no clue that they need training or are unaware that they have gaps in their skill set? How do you get those people engaged in a learning situation, right? How do you get them to get interested and care enough to go through whatever you've put together? So I'm going to share a little story with you. So my mom runs or used to run a beauty salon, and she worked for somebody for years and years and years, and then she started out her own little one-person business. And so I used to go and hang out with my mom sometimes after I finished work or between, I think it was, even on the weekends, she was very busy. So I'd kind of hang out there and help out and just sit and observe in the background. And one of the things this one time I noticed, like my mom is really like huge pro at like skincare is her thing, right? She her salon was exclusively skincare. There was like no hairdressing, no nothing, because she was very particular. And she also was amazing at giving these facials. Her clients, she had clients that came to her, followed her wherever she went. She was that good. And some of her clients were 20-year plus clients. So good reputation, excellent referrals. The woman didn't advertise. She was constantly busy. And she used, her products were these, I don't know if you've heard of them, but anyways, the products that she used were like exports from like Italy. They were just the best. And she spent a lot of good money to use those products on her customers during those facials. And she had some for sale. Just a few creams, right? And so these ladies would come, and this one time I was watching, she had a lady that had been coming to her for years for these facials. And then she was just rebooking for another facial because my mom prompted her to rebook. And when she left, excuse me, I asked my mom, how come she didn't sell her a cream? And because I was already kind of in sales, so I was like, that would make sense to me, right? Why isn't she selling this lady who just had a facial and probably wants to keep those results going at home? Why wouldn't you sell her a cream to keep that going? And my mom said, oh, well, she already rebooked another appointment, so why? I don't want to seem pushy. And I remember when my mom visited me once, she visited me more than once, but she visited me, and there's this little shop beside me that sells, they sell like antiques or something. And the lady there is just like super bubbly and kind of goofy and wears funny hats. And I know her, and she's fantastic. And my mom went in there for the first time, and I knew that, so I asked her how was her experience, and she said, "Oh, that lady was so very pushy." And I thought, I don't see her as pushy. She's very friendly, and she asks a lot of questions. And maybe my mom perceived that as pushy, because in an antique store, it's kind of hard to be pushy, because you don't know what people are going to want. It's everything. So for years, my mom has struggled with sales. And I realized that, let's say this was your employee, if all you are looking at is the result of her efforts, good worker, hard worker, excellent reputation, however, sales are basically zero unless somebody actually says, "Hey, can I have this cream?" And I thought that maybe what a lot of the training that would be presented to say, like if I was running a salon or even just any company that needs to train people on how to sell, the first thing I do is create this kind of some sort of an e-learning module where people are shown what to sell, and then how to sell it, how to overcome an objection. And you know what? My mom went to tons of training seminars on sales, marketing, but she didn't apply any of it. And the reason is because she didn't believe that selling was a customer service. She believed that selling or offering a product was pushy. And the other piece is that my mother had a perception of how she wanted to be sold to. And I don't know if you've ever been to those stores where people actually, like the salespeople, actually come up to you, and once you start trying on clothes, they'll actually start recommending clothes or bringing you things and talking to you. For my mother, that would be the ultimate. I think that would turn her off immediately. For me, I think that's great customer service, and I actually am drawn to that. And I'll return to stores where people are very proactive in helping me, because if I walk into a store or I'm a customer there, it already tells me that somebody's interested and they just want to be guided, because that's the job of the salesperson. So, but my mom didn't see it that way. So regardless of the kind of training we would have given her with, here's the product, here's all the features, here's all the, benefits, here's the kind of customer it applies to, it would not have made a difference. So the way I would approach that kind of a conundrum is to create a scenario that helps somebody like my mom perceive the actions and the consequences of the actions that she's making in a different way. Because the thing is that what we're doing is she's only seeing the front end. She's feeling like, I just saved my customer money, or the reason my customer is rebooking the facial is because they like the service here. But I don't want to, push on them a product they obviously don't want, because they haven't expressed that want, even though they're coming there and using those products on their face as a part of the facial. So the scenario can be used to help my mom discover what the consequences are of her not selling that product to the client. So you want to be using the scenario as a way to compress time and as a way to show something that my mom has never considered, which is what that person is doing after they leave the shop, after they leave the salon, and the decisions they have to make on their own to take care of their skin, let's say. So I would present a scenario exactly like the one that we're trying to break up. Customer walks in or has just had service done. Here's the end. And what do? Do you ask them for a rebooking, or do you ask them for a rebooking, and then after they've agreed to the rebooking, do you also offer them a cream based on what you know about their skin? And those options are always there. Or offer nothing, right? Because you don't want to be too pushy. And also, those options have to be very credible and based on, the major thoughts that would probably be running through somebody like my mom's head. So you put those out there. Then the consequences, let's say, of not upselling and not, in my opinion, providing excellent customer service is something also very consequential, or not consequential, because you're already at the consequences. Haha. It would be something where you are showing somebody having to make, like, let's say that lady goes home and she's very happy with her service and she loves the way her skin feels, but then the next day it doesn't feel the same and she has to go to the store and pick out something, and she's very upset with that because she doesn't know how to make this decision, because she wants to have the same kind of feeling that she did after she leaves the facial, but whatever the 150 creams that are in front of her, maybe some of them are equivalent, but she doesn't know that because there isn't somebody there to guide her, a professional or somebody who knows what would complement what she's already had done. So those are some of the consequences that would, in some ways, probably show your employee what it would mean to actually not sell, how you are actually hurting your customer by not giving them the upsell in a service. And a story that I heard a couple of years ago, which is also, I think, a big deal because it was about customer service training. This was years ago that I heard this story, and it was about the fact that regardless of how much training we give to our employees, if they don't understand that sales and giving people more than recommending products to people and helping them make that selection is actually excellent customer service. And the idea was this lady went shopping for, I think it was like ski equipment. She was her first time going to go skiing. And she went to one of those ski stores, and the guy there said, what are you going to do? And she said, well, I want to go skiing and I don't know anything about what I need. It's my first time, so if you could help me, that would be wonderful. And so he hooks her up. He's like, here's the skis, and I know nothing about skiing. So I'm like, here's the clothes, here's the, poles, and everything's amazing. And she's like, wow, that's quite a lot of money. And he's like, yes, it is, ma'am. But like, you're going to be set for years with this equipment. And I think the idea was that she came in there with like basically a list of stuff and that she needed. And he just did he just gave her the best prices and showed her the stuff that was on the list that she wanted. Of this, that I guess her friends who were also going made this list for her, and he executed perfectly. Everything that she put on the list, he got for her. And so the story continues. She goes to the ski resort, shows up at the place. Everybody's got their equipment ready. So does she. They get to the top of the mountain, and she can't go down because she doesn't have the goggles, because they were not on her list, but he didn't recommend them to her because he didn't want to seem pushy. So he didn't give her those goggles. Now, obviously, that story is not as awesome because I think somebody would be like, well, you might want to have... somebody would have probably recommended those because I think they're pretty important because you can't ski without them. But the idea is that if you only do what your customer tells you to do or what your customer asks for, they might be missing out on the things that they actually need, and only you'd know that they need. And so you have to recommend them and give them the opportunity to decide. And I think that's another piece, is that we have to let our staff who are in sales realize that when they make a decision not to sell, they're taking that decision away from these people who they're trying not to offend. So I feel like what they want to maybe believe as well is that, and you have to do this through the consequences and scenarios, because telling people who care, they will approach these situations through their own lenses, through their own perception, and like I said, through the way that they want to be sold to. And that's not necessarily the way that everybody wants to be sold to. So you're empowering, in fact, your customer by giving them the ability to say no to you or give them a choice. So that's, I think scenarios, they're amazing at being able to help you show consequences of poor assumptions or poor decision making. And it will work if what you do is you actually do a bit of digging and maybe observation on what are people's hangups before they're ready to learn. Because like I said, my mom went through tons of sales training, tons of marketing training, and none of it worked because she didn't realize that she was actually hurting her customers but not giving them all the options. So in order for your training and all of your job aids on how to address the objections, how to share the benefits of something, that will not matter if the people you're training don't understand that sales is something, that needs to be, that they're looking at sales through a certain type of lens. And unless you address that lens and change that shift in perspective, you will not be able to have impact with the training that you deliver to them. So definitely need to address those. And sometimes you discover those mindsets through observation or through interviewing. And I think that that's why you have to also interview not just subject matter experts, who most times are either just experts at training, but they're not actually in the field working with customers, but also to discover the kinds of attitudes that top performers have. You have to actually talk to them. So those are the people working in the field, and you have to figure out the difference between, what is a top performer thinking when they're talking to a customer. And it might be that person is actually coming in with a different attitude. They're coming in with an attitude of, I want to help. I'm going to be blatant about all the help I'm going to offer, and I'm going to let that person choose. And so when you think about things that way, that you have to use scenarios to not train, but help people discover gaps so that they are then motivated to learn, and that you are not only sourcing like your consequences or the options that you present to them have everything to do with all those hangups and the lenses that they have. And that's why I always stress that your options in a scenario, each one of them is actually a lesson that you've discovered needs to be taught, or is a lens that you've discovered needs to be shattered, because you have to discover what those things are. And the way you discover them is not through training, sometimes it is through observation or conversations with people who are actually working in that environment. So, and I think that when you see those customer service reports, stores, a lot of stores do that with the shopping mystery shoppers, right? I think that like when I walk into a store and everybody's folding clothes, let's say, and everybody just says hi to me, I feel like if somebody went into that store and said, okay, all of these people are friendly, but none of them are helping me, what's going on? And I never said anything to make them believe that I wasn't interested in buying clothes, because I'm looking at all the clothes, right? So what's happening there? You have to start discovering, it's not lack of skill most times. It's what people believe the experience should be like. And maybe we're approaching it a little bit from the too heavy from the skills area versus helpfulness. Maybe that's the angle that sometimes we need to take, is that we actually want to help people. And everybody is actually feels so great when they start helping people. And when those results are like very positive. So what we also want to do is paint that picture at the end of a person, let's say when they are successful in a scenario. What you want to do is not attach it necessarily, especially in sales. The people who are motivated by money will sell. They will. But the people who are motivated by more intrinsic things like helping, or there's the satisfaction, or personal satisfaction that they've done something well, you have to realize that that's the kind of picture you have to sell at the end of the scenario as well. So the consequences and the results of those consequences, you have to let people not only feel, let's say, like if I chose to offer up the cream and the lady accepted, or she hesitated a bit, like a lot of times our scenario can be the consequence is an objection because people are used to saying no. The consequence could be that the lady says, no thanks, but I appreciate you recommending that. And maybe what happens is the next time she comes in for a facial, she says, last time you recommended that cream, then I went to the store by myself and I tried to pick one out, but I realized this one is, I like the idea that you recommended to me because there was like 150 creams there and I didn't know which one to choose. So I'm happy that you recommended it last time, so I'm going to buy it this time. But what happens is there can be multiple consequences that arise, and through some of those consequences, you can actually help that person experience their worst fears coming true, like somebody going, no, I don't want it, but it's not as horrible as they've made it out in their mind, right? So that's one of the things that you're doing through your scenario, is showing them that the consequence is the result is actually not as horrendous as they believe, right? So getting used to that no is actually also a big deal. So you kind of help them practice that. And then, as I said, the other point is that you can't show the end result, which you should show, because I think you need to, like, it's a story they're going through. So you have to kind of show them the most optimal result. And for a lot of people, it is not that they're the top salesperson. For my mom, it would not have been you're the top salesperson, because she's a one-person shop, right? It doesn't matter. And also, the idea is she's working for herself, and this lens is preventing her from making sales for her own business. That's how strong this lens is, that we have to really, this is her own business. Imagine people who are working at a store for you, and you're miles away, and this is let's say you run a giant company full of salespeople. You don't get to talk to them one-on-one. And this isn't really their business, so they're not as invested in it. And some people don't work on commission. So what drives them to be there? What sometimes drives them to be there is the idea of contribution, the idea of being recognized for doing a job well done, right? And also that personal satisfaction that they've made somebody's day better. Those kinds of things, like people will buy coffee for the person behind them. They'll never see that person, but they got the personal satisfaction of feeling like a hero. Let them feel like a hero. So what would have worked for somebody like my mom, who is really empathetic and really what would have jarred her is if she found out that she wasn't helping people, that people were frustrated as a result of her not making a simple recommendation. But also then the other alternative is that the minute she realizes that if she makes an upsell, then that, let's say that person goes home and the next day they get to feel the same feeling on their face as they did when they left the salon, and they're so very happy with that. that's a part of it too. So it wouldn't have been any kind of monetary at that point gain, although that happens, I guess, it would have happened naturally because of the value she would have been providing. But at that point, knowing that she made somebody's life better would have made her feel like a hero. And that's huge. And it's funny because those things can be, it's just a feeling, but sometimes that feeling and sharing that feeling in your scenarios can actually be awesome. Because the problem, I think we have to really just let go of some things, is that we're always trying to get everybody in a single scenario. We're trying to get all kinds of audiences. And so what happens is we generalize, we strip story away, we strip details away, because we want to have, the people who are in this, in this situation, the people who are in this market, the people who are in this category, all kinds of learners. And really what happens is we like I said, we dilute it, and it resonates with no one. So what I suggest is that your scenario is targeted at a certain kind of lens, targeted at a certain type of behavior that you want to address. And when you create it, because it is so contextual to that one set of people with that one set of lenses, it is supremely effective. And then you can move on to the next piece that you want to tackle. So what happens is, these stories will resonate with those that, with those people that either have this lens, or what it will also do is the people who are already doing this well, they'll just get a confirmation to continue, because they'll realize they'll have, maybe the people who are selling just for money will now have another reason to justify their sales because they want to help. And that's actually pretty awesome. So getting those details and figuring out what are those little pieces that hold people back from optimal performance. If your scenario can do that, then you don't even need to build training for the rest of it. Because if you have A players and they're all in the right mindset, this, people will find ways to upskill and train and help their customers. So if I only created a scenario for my mom so that she could find out that the way she was handling her customers was that she should have been recommending them products every single time they had a service with her, I wouldn't have even probably needed to develop any training at all for her on how to do sales. She would have found something to learn about that topic on her own. And she probably, in this case, would have started just talking to people and making recommendations in a very natural way to her, and it would have made a huge difference. So, but I mean, those are the things we always have to think about. I think we load all our efforts into the back end, into the training, instead of realizing that in order for us to have good results, we have to prime the people we are training, and we have to dispel some of those beliefs that they have, so that they are ready to actually learn and willing and open and understand that there is a gap that they have. So definitely for somebody like my mom, who never would have had a opportunity to really sell, it would have been important for her to definitely go through a sales training right after that, because she would have been, one, super ready and willing, two, had never practiced it before because she'd always rejected it. So all of a sudden, all of that training information would have been brand new to her. And the reason is because she would have now been ready for it. Sometimes you read a book and you're like, oh, that was okay. But then you revisit that book like 2 years later, and all of a sudden it just, something clicks. It's because you're ready for it. And that's the kind of experiences we want to create for our learners, where they're actually all of a sudden, we've shifted something, we've helped them see a different a way, and all of a sudden the same things that are around them are now making sense. The same things that they've looked at and we've pounded into them all of a sudden are actually helpful because it fits into their narrative. And so that's what we're actually altering, is the narrative, the things they tell themselves, the things they are telling themselves that they can do, that they should feel, that others perceive. You're changing that. And now what you have to do is have something really awesome ready for them right after your e-learning scenario. You want to have something, a place to take them. So that's one of the things that I also suggest, is that when you create your scenarios, they should finish with a call to action. I think a lot of stuff finishes with, great, hope you enjoyed that, that's awesome, but there isn't, like, good customer service, really. There isn't a direction on what to do next. So for my mom, let's say, what I would have done is, after she finishes her scenario, she sees this possibility. She's pumped and ready to go. She goes, I can't believe I've been missing this. I want to help every single customer I have have greater skin. And I know I can do that by having them continue this routine at home. And I can tell them what to do. This would be so easy for me. How do I do that? And so I have a quick, at the end, I'll say, now if you actually want to learn how to do this so that your customers understand what you're saying and are able to easily do this at home, because you're a professional, right? And it's going to be a different routine than what you do in the actual store. Here are some steps on how to do that. So the first thing you want to do maybe is ask your customer a question. The second thing is figure out what they already are using so that you can augment their process, whatever that is, right? I would very easily, I would very directly tell them what to do next if they want to take action. Because we are a little bit too, I think, ambiguous in that end, and also not directive enough. People are looking for direction. When I figure out I have a gap, I want to know what to do next, and I don't want to have to search that out. So your scenario, if it's done right, and it should be, what happens is at the very end, you end up saying, okay, now you're ready. Take it to the next level. Here is this. Here is your checklist. Here is your resource. Or if you want to develop these skills, these are the 4 areas that you need to practice. Click on the first one to learn how. Now they're ready, but you have to have resources that are ready for them. Don't make them search. So make sure that path is complete and people are ready to go and they can go there right away. Because they're pumped, they're ready. You want to maximize on that excitement and on that thirst, because they're going to have it to learn, because now they've identified that need. So it's not that the people that we train are, they're lazy or that they don't understand things. It's that they are looking at the training in a way that is preventing them from taking full advantage of it. So we have to discover what those things are and then completely smash them to pieces and help them when they're now looking for something, help them by being very direct at the end and guiding them to that new information that they now are looking for, instead of letting them just figure it out on their own. So I hope that was helpful. That my poor mom, I hope she never listens to this podcast, because she's going to be, she doesn't sell anymore, right? She's no longer running that business. So who knows? Maybe she should get back into it if she heard it. But it's kind of interesting, because that's what happens when you observe people. You can discover things that they're just surprising, and I think that we don't realize that our learners are not us. They are not always thirsty for knowledge or thirsty for optimizing what they're doing. And I mean, we all look through things through a certain lens. So we have to be cognizant of that as well, because we are learning that our particular lens is also skewing the way we look at the learning that we develop. So it's always good to get another perspective or several different perspectives on the things that we design, because we are coming in with a certain perspective on why something is important, and it's kind of it's very easy for us to basically work in a silo, because everything confirms that we're right because we've created it. So always get that perspective from outside of your silo. Always get perspective from your learners, and iterate quickly so that you can do this very quickly and start rolling out scenarios based on specific needs. And then you can just, as you knock them out, basically you're saying, okay, here's 6 behaviors I really want to target, and I'm going to create scenarios that will address each one. But because you're targeting those behaviors so quickly, and you can target more than one behavior in a single scenario. Depends on what it is. That might be another conversation for us. But then what happens is you're becoming very systematic, and your targeting and your stories can become very focused, and they resonate much, much better than something where you try to address 16 different things and do poorly on all of them, because it's very hard to do that. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you have an awesome day as a result. And if you have any questions, or if you want any topics to be discussed further and you'd like more detail, then email me, Anna at eLearnerEngaged. And as always, if you like this, if you like hearing about scenarios and you enjoy the topics that I talk about, then go to iTunes or wherever else you're listening to this and give me a review or a rating and let me know if you like it, okay? Hope you have a great day. Take care.
You're listening to the eLearning Scenario Design Podcast with Anna Zabramowitz.